and welcome to this edition of the ASSEK Member Spotlight. My name is Michelle Juri. I'm the ASSEK Communications Officer. Today we get a chance to speak to Nzilani Mulati, Programs Manager at Amani Institute, whereby she speaks to us on transformational leadership and management. Welcome. Nzilani, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent.
How is the weather treating you?
Oh, it's cold.
But hopefully this interview will warm you up. So Nzilani is going to be telling us a bit about Amani Institute and how they are nurturing the next generation of leaders in Kenya organizations. Welcome, Nzilani.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'd like to start off by asking, briefly give us a brief background of Amani Institute and your role in the company.
Okay, excellent. So Amani Institute actually exists to develop professionals who create social impact. And so we're really about building people, building organizations, and building their skills. And as we build their skills, we are looking at impact, not just building the capacity for organizations to grow their businesses, but we're also big on business and societal impact. And so how we do this is we design and deliver inspiring, engaging, and transformational learning programs that help both organizations and individuals build practical skills and networks to take them to the next level. And when we talk about the next level, it's really for them to achieve what they'd like to achieve and at the same time create positive impact. And so we have 4 key pillars that we focus on when we are developing these programs, these learning programs. And these 4 core pillars are the first one is on leadership, second one is on management and entrepreneurship, the third one is on problem solving and innovation, the fourth one is on communication. And so we are really, really happy that we've reached quite a number of different organizations, different countries, and we are currently based in Kenya, India, and Brazil.
Awesome. So just drawing on your company, how many consultants are there in your team, in the Kenyan team?
So in the Kenyan team, we have about 7 consultants. Yes, I would say in our team, and we do also work with quite a number of partners. One of our key partners is Andy, and we also have Agidias. So that would be in the Kenyan context, but we also do have different consultants in India and Brazil, and our work is quite collaborative. So a project would have consultants across different countries. We also do have consultants also that are based in the US.
And what type of services, apart from the 4 pillars that you've mentioned of your organization, what services do you offer?
So when I look at the services that we offer, of course, key top of the agenda is, delivering and designing the inspiring, engaging, and transformational learning programs. And so how we do this is across 3 key sectors. The first one is we're keen on developing change makers. That's actually how Amani was born. There was a gap in there in terms of people do want to make a difference in the world. However, they don't have the skill set and the framework to make this difference. So in that regard, we do have a flagship program that's on social innovation management. Then the second thing we do is we build capacities of organizations where we get to tailor make or customize training interventions for them. And at the same time, we do have our Leadership for Growth program under that bracket. And then the third one is we get to serve the purpose economy. We do knowledge articles on that. In that regard, we also do different networking forums and learning forums in that regard.
Oh, so you have a lot of partners even in the media space. For the articles you do publish sometimes and do TV interviews just so that you can do mass knowledge programs.
Yes, we do. In fact, I remember last year we got featured in one of the TV shows here in Kenya. That's the NTV show, where we're really talking about the challenges that the small and growing businesses are facing in Kenya, and we got to give our perspective. And so we are really happy and honored to be able to partner with different people in that regard. We've also published quite a number of articles, especially around leadership, the social innovation space, and they've been featured on the Harvard Business Review. Yes, those 2 articles were written by our founders. So we are very glad that we're able to collaborate with different people in different sectors, just to really make a difference in the lives of people.
Okay, and so to date, how many organizations have you worked with? The ones that you've been able to train? Cumulatively, just a rough estimate. I know you can't get them all, but
okay, great. So I have the numbers as per December 2020, and as per then we've worked with 115 organizations globally on 154 projects, and that we've been able to have about 9,000 people that we've worked with across all those projects.
And in different sectors?
In different sectors. The sectors are quite agnostic. So we do have the experience with different people we've worked with. And just to mention a few, like in 2020 here in Kenya, we had the opportunity to work with ASSEK, where we trained their sustainability champions. That was a 3-month online program where we trained 80 staff. We also have yearly working with the East African Regional Center. So since 2016, we've been taking the participants through the civic leadership track, and really just to mention, it's a Young African Leadership Initiative. That's President Obama's flagship project on leadership in Africa. And so we are fortunate to be able to work with different people. So in 2020 alone, we trained 447 young Africans through the civic leadership track. And then just to mention one last one, we've also worked with WWF, specifically with the Pendulums. So where we had 6 greenhouse sessions, which we were facilitating a monthly virtual event series for them. So just to give you a snapshot of the different sectors that we've been able to work with.
Wow, that's interesting. I am quite impressed. So do you think that organizations in Kenya have adopted the culture of training their senior and middle managers? And in your opinion, why is this the case that if they have or if they haven't, why is this the case? Is this something that's actually eminent in Kenyan organizations to train the staff? Or do you think that staff sometimes are just propelled into leadership and they have no training whatsoever and they're just told to go with your gut feeling? Yes.
Okay, that's a really good question. And how I'd look at it, I would say it's a double-edged sword, really, to put it that way, because we do have 2 kinds of organizations here in Kenya. We have organizations that have an adaptive mindset and a growth mindset, and then we do have other organizations that are just not growing, they're not adaptive, they're okay with the status quo. So from my observation, the organizations that are adaptive and have a growth mindset really invest in their staff. They really invest in the senior and middle level managers, and they're keen to really grow them. And we've been fortunate to work with quite a number of organizations in that space. They are interested, they are keen, because they're not just looking at the now for their business, but they're also looking at the future and how can we really be able to achieve our goals and adapt, especially now during COVID. And then we also have the other set of organizations that are just rigid, and for them, they don't see the value for it. They see the value in doing other things, classical things in terms of growing their customer base, doing advertising campaigns, and don't necessarily invest in their customers. So we just have to look at the spectrum and see where does the organization fall. That's why I invite them.
And I'm curious, it's interesting that you've pointed that out. How does this impact on employees working within that organization, especially for the ones that don't? And why is this the case? Is it that in Kenya it's a culture thing? I'd reckon it's a culture thing that people feel like leadership is just leadership. It's they don't think about it as something that you have a responsibility not only to yourself but to others. Is it something that's ingrained in our system as Kenya?
Well, possibly so, because we've really seen the leadership space grow and different theories coming up since the 50s all the way to now. And it depends with where you are again in terms of the spectrum of leadership, because classically, when you think of leadership, you think of it as being inborn. There's some people who still think that you're born a leader. If you're not born a leader, you can't lead. And that's honestly the 50s approach. Right now, leadership is you can actually be a leader. There are a set of skills and framework and mindset that you can employ to be a leader. And so, yes, it's parts of our culture that just feel like, for example, if you're the firstborn, you're the leader.
I know. I know.
If you're the lastborn, you can never be a leader. So there are also those different belief systems that we have, the different orientations that we have that really play a role in how we view leadership, the different perceptions that we do have. And so all this, I would say, comes into play when we look at the whole leadership space, because ideally someone in leadership has their belief system, they have their culture, they have their approach on how they look at things. And so I think one of the things COVID has really taught us is to question the status quo. Very basic things like a wedding, you need to have quite a number of people attending your wedding. Now we are questioning the status quo. Must you have all those people in your wedding? I mean, according to the government directives, so many things have changed. And so we just can't continue doing things the way we used to do.
True.
And so I see this as an opportunity for all leaders to just have a moment of reflection and ask themselves key questions. That's how I would look at it.
Interesting that you've mentioned that, because I'm thinking that even when we're working from home, you have to manage yourself. You have to be your own leader, because you can't, because not all organizations have resumed business 24/7 because of the high COVID rates. So obviously you have to monitor your time. It's more of time management. And the way you're saying, everyone is not born, like no one is born a leader. That's 1950s approach. But you can actually get to be a leader. How does Amani Institute instill the skills in the organizations you work with?
Okay. Good question. So what we do is, first of all, I would say our approach is unique and it's different. One, the uniqueness that we bring is that we are experiential and practical in our approaches. Because gone are the days that you want to hear about something but you can't apply. You always have to keep asking yourself, okay, how can I apply this? Because we're living in the information age. Lots of information, very little transformation. So that's where we come in. Our approach is transformational. And so we do have a program that's called the Leadership for Growth program. It's a 6-month program tailored for senior and middle-level managers, specifically in the small and growing business sector, because we do see this as a sector that really offers a buffer for the economy of Kenya. If we build this sector, then we'll be able to really build this nation. And so this program is so we take the senior and middle-level managers through the 6 months where they learn the skills, framework, and mindset for leadership. Okay, And so it's very practical. They're able to, what they learn, they're able to apply. They're able to relate to their day-to-day work environment. And so we use 2 key things to also assess whether what we are doing is working. So we have the personal leadership practice, where the managers get to really decide on a couple of key skills that they are intentional to develop, and they develop them, and we hold them accountable. So we do have coaching sessions with them. And then the second thing we do have is a business innovation project. So they get to work on a business challenge and turn that around, or if their organization is really operating at an optimum, look for an opportunity for growth for your business and come up with a solution for it. So by the time you're graduating, you need to have a working prototype, practically. And we've seen quite a number of different organizations, have different turnarounds, either with their customer engagement or with machine downtime, having different issues, and they've been able to turn that around because of the skills that we've given them. So it's a nomination-based program. So the line manager gets to nominate either the senior or middle level manager. Reason being, we do want buy-in from the organization, because once you learn what you're learning, go back and implement. Get the support from leadership, top leadership, to be able to implement what you're learning. So in a nutshell, that's what the program, I would say, is all about. And so we started off in Kenya, and been able to have quite some impact, especially when it comes to the business innovation project. And so we got a scaling grant from AGDS. So we've now scaled the program into Brazil and India.
So I'm just curious to know, does this training program, the Leadership for Growth program, does it involve a behavioral change? Because sometimes you will see that leaders are promoted, but it's not aggressive or unapproachable. This happens a lot, because you find, yes, someone has potential to be a leader, but then there's a behavioral switch that needs to happen for them to be alert, that it's not just about management. And what is the difference between management and leadership in that regard?
Okay, so those are 2 questions, right? Yeah. The one for whether there's a change in behavior, and I would say yes. In fact, once we are done with the program, we're very keen to find out what's the impact, both for the organization and also for the participants. So we use an and approach, where the organization is benefiting from the program, as well as the manager themselves is participating. Is growing from the program. And so far, we've gotten a 95%. I would say leadership effectiveness through the program. So that means that after the managers have come through the program, the 95% of them say that we have improved in terms of our leadership approach, and not just improving, it's behavioral, and they even cite examples of how they've been able to do that.
And the employees under them, do they also give, is there a review? And why isn't this a culture in Kenya?
Actually, that's a good question. I was having this conversation with my friend, actually my colleague, and there are different countries that have different codings when it comes, different ratings when it comes to communication. So Kenya is rated as a red zone in terms of communication, largely because of our culture. And the Kenyan culture is based on, you really want to make everyone happy. You want to be cordial with everyone, and so people do not necessarily give you feedback, honest feedback, especially if it's negative feedback. People will be like, it's okay, we will see what we can do. However, there are some countries in the West where they're they're okay to give you that feedback. So I think, again, culture does play a very, very big role in this. So let me come to your second question, where you asked me what's the difference between leadership and management. And so, first and foremost, let's just know that both aspects are equally important. I know we have really pushed the agenda for leadership and left off management, but they're all equally important. And let me just give the reason why. Now, when we think about management is all about having a set of well-known processes. Processes like planning, budgeting, structuring jobs, staffing. And the reason you have these well-known processes is because it helps the organization to predictably do what it knows how to do well. Okay?
Yeah.
And at the same time, this is important, is you're able to produce products and services as you promised, and you have consistent quality, and cost.
True.
So keyword under management is consistency. And I want you to think of a brand that you like. It could be a beverage, anything. Yeah. Let's say a soda. I like Coke. Let me just use that example.
Yeah.
You want every time you buy a Coke, it tastes the same.
Yeah.
So if management practices are not in place, there will be deviations. So management is looking at zero deviations. This is what we've promised our customers. This is what we deliver. And so we have to make sure we do a number of processes to make that happen. So that's why management is also very important. Leadership, on the other hand, is really associated with taking the organization into the future. So we're looking at vision, about people buying in to where we are going to, about empowerment, and most of all, about producing useful change. Not just change, but useful change. Because if we remain at management level, then we are not looking at the future. So if we're not looking at the future, we may continue doing what we still do
Without looking at also our consumers, how they're feeling about and what they would like. We're just looking at what we want.
Or what's been working before. Remember, the consumers keep changing. Yeah. So both of them are equally important. And so we actually teach the managers who come through the program to learn how to flex both muscles. Okay? So I'd look at it like I'm going to the gym, I'm lifting weights. If you're just lifting the management weight on one hand, this other hand is
Will be lean and not looking built.
Exactly. And if you do the same for
It's
the
just
leadership,
like if you decide to do planks
Yeah.
and you don't go on if you just decide to do planks and you're trying to lose weight all over and probably you haven't gone on the treadmill, you won't have the desired effect.
exactly.
So both are complementary.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And in your opinion, were Kenyan organizations' leadership skills brought to test during the onset of COVID-19? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think COVID-19 really did come with lots of ambiguity, lots of changes, and we're able to see this impact both individuals and also organizations. And I mean, it was just a curveball that nobody expected, and I think it was a very tough time. It still is for quite a number of organizations. And to be very honest, I must say I really observed quite some resilience from different organizations, from the different organizations that we've partnered with, that have gone through our training programs, because we did really support small and growing businesses. We offered them pro bono coaching services just to make sure we give them support however we can. And so even during the coaching sessions, I mean, the theme of resilience really came out quite strongly, and which brought about innovation, which brought about new things. I mean, people were just doing amazing things that they never thought they could do in terms of basic things like communication. People now started using collaborative tools,
They had to talk. They had to talk. You're working from different locations. You can't be like, just do this. Now you have to break it down. and be like, this is the task I want, this is how I'd like it done, so that it's not back and forth, and also to increase efficiency, isn't it? So that even the employees who are not talking to the managers, because we know that this type of employees, they don't like to ask questions, they just like to be silent. And they're like, as long as I get the job done. So now it made them stand out, not like sore thumbs, but they had to now come out of their cocoon and be like, hey, I need help with this. And I think it increased collaboration, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it actually did,
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just been an interesting space. So how I look at COVID, I look at it as an opportunity to emerge from the caterpillar into a butterfly,
Yeah.
And we've seen so many organizations do that, and unfortunately the ones who were not able to push through, because it's difficult, man, it's really difficult for you to get from the cocoon stage into the butterfly. The ones who are not able to do that, unfortunately, some of those organizations closed down. And I don't see it as the end of those organizations. I see it as an opportunity for a rebirth. They can now do something else. They have the skills, they know what to do, what not to do. And so I must commend, honestly, the Kenyan organizations for that level of resilience and innovation.
Awesome. And just now to just go in depth a bit, what were some of the challenges some of the organizations you were working with had experienced, apart from the ones we've been able to discuss, and what support were you able to offer these organizations?
So first and foremost, I think one of the key challenges that we saw coming up was the challenge of customer engagement, because the customers' needs were changing. Let me give an example, just a classic example. Most people are working from home. So if you're in the textile industry, I mean, you produce clothes, office wear.
Oh,
I mean, that just affects your baseline,
Yeah.
So customer interests changed, and they had to now, most organizations had to really know their customers again. I would say it was an opportunity for you to date your customers again. Get to know what do they want. And at almost every other 3 to 6 months, they want something different. And so it really called for a lot of adaptability. And then the other thing that, especially organizations that are funded, we saw some decline in funding because of, the challenges that came with COVID. Others was when we had the different timing and we had curfews. Some organizations, peak time was in the evening hours, and that affected again their baseline. Challenges of communication. I mean, challenges of downsizing, because now if your baseline has reduced, then how do you now put the lights on in your organization? So we saw different organizations, people would work in shifts, and that has somehow affected the morale of the employees. And how do you effectively communicate to all stakeholders, telling them that we still have your best interest at hand? Just trust us, trust the process, So all those were challenges, and every day there seems to be a new curveball, there seems to be a new challenge. So those are, I would say, the key challenges that we got to face. And so how we supported them, as I had mentioned, is one, we were able to give our community of managers support. So we offered them pro bono. We had pro bono learning programs or learning engagements where we would ask them what's your pressing need right now. And then every quarter we would design a program that caters for that need for them. Not a very long program, about 2 to 3 hours, and then we actually give them the new skills to be able to adapt. So one of the sessions we had that was a major one, I think, that most people appreciated, was on managing polarities. How do you effectively manage polarities, both individually and at your workplace? The other thing that we did was we offered also the community of managers as well as their line managers pro bono coaching support, because we did understand that you need support, and coaching essentially is about us listening and asking you effective questions so that you come up with solutions for the problem, the challenges that you have. And so we saw quite a number of managers were able to work with in that space, and just by that tool in itself, we saw turnarounds, first in perspective. Yeah, because the biggest hindrance usually is perspective and mindset. So turnaround in perspective, and then of course turnaround in just small actions here and there that really do make the difference. We're able to focus on the 20% that makes the 80% different. So those are the two key things we were able to do for our managers. And then of course being part of the purpose economy, publishing articles on how you can be resilient, and then of course still offering the Leadership for Growth program, because now more than ever I would say this program has really added value to different managers, because now they have the skills to effectively navigate tough times, because leadership is all about navigating tough times. Lots of uncertainty in the future. Leadership also entails having a balcony approach as well as a dance floor view when solving problems. So then we are so glad that this program is coming in handy, especially now. And like even when we look at the number of searches on Google, we noticed a rise in people have really searched on how can I make a difference in the world. And so there's a need. People really want the skills, the tools, the framework for making changes, for leadership, effective leadership. And we are so glad that we're able to offer that now to the world when it's really needed.
So even Amani did not rewire per se, but you were able to make programs around the needs of your consumers. And so what are your hopes for leadership in the Kenyan organizations?
So my hope when it comes to leadership in Kenyan organization is that first and foremost, understanding that, especially when you're in the top leadership, understanding that leadership really determines how the ship will sail. You have the opportunity to be the captain of that ship, so to speak. And so it's really important. It's not something that we can trivialize anymore, something we need to really be intentional about. And so my hope is that leaders would be intentional in applying their leadership skills, even when it's hard. Intentional to also grow other leaders, and intentional to actually lead. Intentional leadership. And so that's for the top leadership. And for everyone to just know that in my own unique way, I can be a leader. In how I do my work, in the sets of habits that I have every single day, that in itself causes me to be a leader. Because sometimes we are busy pointing fingers and we are not looking at ourselves as a solution. Yes, so let's be part of the solution. Let's be part of the people who do make that difference.
Wow. Thank you so much, Nzilani. I love what you've said. Let's look at ourselves, because mostly we're always looking at everyone. We're blaming fingers. It's easy for us to do that, but then we never think of ourselves as, hey, I could change this. And I love that. Thank you so much, Nzilani. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you. Want to be featured on the Members Spotlight? Reach out to us via communications@assek.ke and let us tell your story.